Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all having a fantastic evening. Tonight I'm going to be doing a review. This is a French horror film, French language English subs, released in the year 2011, directed by Alexandre Bastillo and Julien Marie, who were responsible for the masterpiece in 2007 called Inside. 4 years later they have done a follow-up, and this film is called Livid. And the story to Livid is as follows. Young caregiver Lucy finds new work with an ex-teacher in making home visits to elderly patients. Their last stop of the first day is at a dark labyrinth mansion owned by Madame Giselle, a comatose former ballet instructor with a stern reputation. After learning that Madame Giselle is rumoured to have a priceless treasure hidden somewhere deep within this sprawling estate, Lucy's boyfriend William convinces her and their pal Ben to stage a break-in on Halloween night. But the deeper the trio journeys into the mansion, the more they learn that their house holds a terrifying secret. With no way out, they find themselves hopelessly caught in a twisted maze of unspeakable terror and supernatural torment. So the movie centres around Lucy. She is a young woman who is starting a new job as a caregiver. Now she's accompanied by Mrs. Wilson, who has been working as a caregiver for many years, and basically accompanying her to show her the ropes of how it's done. So they visit all these other elderly patients in their houses, they give them injections and they look after them, basically do what a caregiver does. And then their last stop on the first day is at this mansion. Now this mansion is a massive place, and it's owned by a former ballet instructor who has a very stern reputation, named Madame Giselle. Now for the last few years, Madame Giselle has fallen into a coma, and it looks like she's a hopeless case, basically. She's going to die, but they've kept her on life support. So Mrs. Wilson has been looking after this woman for quite a few years, and Lucy is going to take over. So Mrs. Wilson is going to show her what to do. During this time when Lucy is tending to Madame Giselle, Mrs. Wilson tells Lucy about a rumoured priceless treasure that has been hidden in this estate for quite a few years, and that she's trying to look for it, but she has had no luck. So Lucy immediately becomes curious about this, and later on in that night, she tells her boyfriend William and William's friend Ben about it. Now, William and Ben, straight away, they want to rob the place, and they want to get the treasure and make a better life for themselves. But Lucy doesn't want anything to do with it. She's not a criminal, and she says it's the wrong thing to do to take advantage of a woman who is helpless. But William eventually convinces Lucy and Ben to do this for the better of themselves. So on Halloween night, they go to the estate, they rob it, or they break in, and they're looking for the treasure, and along the way they uncover a terrifying secret that the mansion has been hiding. And as a result of that, their evening is about to get a hell of a lot worse. So if you want to know how the movie unfolds, please go out there and see this film for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with a synopsis. Now, my thoughts on this film. As I said, Julien Marie and Alexandre Bastillo's previous effort, Inside, their debut film, was absolute masterpiece, and I thought it raised the bar very, very early, which can be a curse for a director. So many times they start off with such a brilliant piece, and then everything is compared to that. So forever that bar has been raised to a very, very high and sometimes unreachable standard, and therefore the directors will suffer. So going into this one, I didn't expect it to be as good as Inside, but what I wanted was something different and something memorable, and that's exactly what I got. And that's exactly what you guys will get if you go into it with the right expectations. Now, after Inside, these two directors got a name for themselves with brutal, graphic, shocking violence, and a little bit of atmosphere to go in with it as well. So if you go into it with that expectation, you're going to be disappointed, and you're not going to really find any value to this film. But if you go in there wanting something different and wanting something very atmospheric, where the gore takes a little bit of a back seat, this movie is definitely for you. If you're a psychological sort of horror fan, this one is definitely one. Now, where Inside had the gore and then the atmosphere, whereas this movie is a complete opposite. It really has a focus on the atmosphere, and on the backseat a little bit of gore to throw in. It's a very different pacing to Inside. Inside thrust you into the action very, very quickly, whereas this movie is a very slow burner. It takes a while to get into the juicy stuff. So there's a lot of characters. So you get to know the characters. They're not overly likable, but the film is, for the majority, well written, and the characters are likable enough. I mean, at least you want to get interested in what they've got about them. So during that build-up, there's a lot of tension. There is a lot of character points where you get to learn a little bit more about the characters. So when the twists happen at the end, it's kind of a little bit more understandable. So I thought for the way that the film was made, it did require a solid build-up. And this just proves that Alexander Bastillo and Julian Marie are not one-trick ponies, that every film of theirs is not going to contain violence, and you can pretty much expect the unexpected. Now, this movie is a gothic fairy tale. It has a very fantasy sort of feeling, and it does blend in a lot of subgenres. There's a little bit of vampire subgenre, there's a little bit of haunted house, ghosts, and a little bit of brutality and gore in it as well. So they combined all those traditional elements in a horror film, and they make it their own with a unique sort of twist on it. It does pay homage to classic films that I'm not going to mention, but you'll see the film and you'll find out for yourself. And I felt that although they don't rip them off, they pay a lot of respect to it. And not only do they pay respect to the horror genre, they pay respect to the horror fans. It doesn't get overly complicated. It doesn't get too ambitious, although at the end I thought it did a little bit. But for the majority of it, what you see is what you get. There is no sort of cheap CGI. It all, looks very good, and it's typical what you expect from these two guys. So although it's not as good as Inside, it's something different and it's something memorable. Now, the acting was very good. I thought that it didn't require great performances, but I thought Patrice Daly plays a very small cameo, which was my biggest disappointment as far as acting is concerned. I really liked her role. I think she's one of the best villains ever in Inside, whereas this movie, she doesn't really play that big a role. She plays the role of Madame Giselle, the ballerina sort of teacher, and when she's on screen, she demands attention, and she plays the part really well. I mean, this woman is one of the most underrated actors out there. I thought she's brilliant in everything she does, and this is no different. For the short time she's in it, she really does make a name for herself. And the costume designs of the monsters, or the vampires and all that kind of stuff, I thought was really freaky. And that's what the film is. It is genuinely a scary movie, which is something that is lacking in modern day horror. There are moments that are very dark. The house is very creepy and old fashioned. There's a few cheap jump scares, which, usually cheap jump scares aren't that good, but they are done very well in this one because they're few and far between, and that you don't really expect when something's going to happen. And when you're expecting something to happen, it doesn't happen. So it keeps you on the edge of your seat, and you don't know where the next scare is going to come from. Therefore, the safety net that you get in a lot of horror films is non-existent. So you're left wondering throughout the entire duration. Now, there are a few problems to the films. I mean, it's not a masterpiece. Where Inside capped it off brilliantly with that very thought-provoking ending and the high-impact ending, this movie kind of goes through the comical phase. Now, the ending I thought was actually pretty poor, and it didn't really do the film any justice. I'd like the fact that it was a different ending to Inside. Therefore, it keeps the consistency in the difference throughout the entire length, and it does have a different sort of payoff. But the payoff just didn't work. I applaud the directors for trying something different, but in the end, it kind of really hurt the film, and it went against everything that the film was building up for. For a film to generate so much tension, it really does need a good finale. But unfortunately, in this case, the finale left a lot up to the imagination. It left a lot for interpretation, which is something I felt was very unnecessary for this film. And as I said, right at the end, it feels a little bit funny. It just really disappointed me the way it finished. But overall, I do feel that it is definitely a horror film that's well worth it. It does have its genuine moments of horror. Initially, I was going to give this 3.5 stars, but considering the great visuals and the superb psychological impact that the film has, I am going to end up giving this one 4 stars. If you liked Inside, you're definitely going to get something out of this one because it will not disappoint. It doesn't come up to the standard of Inside, but then again, I really wasn't expecting it to. So it is a very welcome twist to the tired genre of horror. So, yeah, definitely worth checking out, although the last quarter of the film really does hurt it and prevents it from being a masterpiece. So that is my review for the French horror film Livid. It is coming recommended, but yeah, it's not as good as Inside. Alright guys, that's my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.